say die. Yes, I just feel jaded, defeated and frustrated. Keep wishing maybe somehow I could change my face. Feel like a sheep inside wolf's clothing. I'm so filled with fear and loathing, and I worry that I'll never find my place. And I'm held hostage by these hotels. I could go out, but there's no telling what waits for me out there. Except I'm sure it isn't you. And me and what I really have been talking this thing out. We've been pondering life's mysteries. What is it all about? When the world teams up against us, we look it in the eye, and then dive in head first, screaming, hey you guys, Goonies never say die. Cause our lives take different courses. We get married, get divorces. Our regrets and our remorses wear us down until we die. So we just keep moving forward, onward, up Excelsior. Because persistence is the one resource we have that won't run dry. Yeah, me and what I really have been talking this thing out. We've been pondering life's mysteries. What is it all about? When the world teams up against us, we look it in the eye and dive in head first, screaming, hey you guys, Goonies never say die. Goonies never say die. Goonies never say die. Goonies never say die. Die. And
Hey everyone, welcome to Con Artist. We are here, episode 11. Meet Steven. This is Stephen K. Stephen K. Smith, props. Hi, Stephen. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, man. It's been a long day, but I am here.
Yeah. Well, you've been doing a lot of stuff out of the house. You kind of climbed through cosplay, the ranks of cosplay pretty quickly last year and the year before, and now you're just kind of celebrating at home and having a good time making new stuff with new projects, right?
Yeah, I mean that's part of it. I think the other part is not celebrating as much, but a little burned out from going to so many conventions. I went to 12 to 13 conventions a year every year for the past past several years. That's a lot of traveling.
Yeah, that's a vacation once a month. That's really not a vacation. It's not not any rest when you're wearing costumes,
That's right. That's what I try to tell my wife. She's like, "You get to travel all over the country," but I'm like, "But it's not the same."
right? Well, hey, help us, and help the audience learn a little bit more about you. Um, when did you become a geek? When did you make the active decision to become a geek?
Well, I would say that it all started when I was a child, I'd say that I've been into, I guess, geek or nerd culture since I was really little. I always loved fantasy and D&D, video games, all that good stuff, and then just grew up with it. And now all that stuff that was deemed like nerdy and geek nowadays, that's the cool stuff. So it's kind of done a 180 on there.
Absolutely, it has. The geek shall inherit the earth has kind of come about for us. Uh, what what kind of comic books did you read as a kid?
Oh man, I mean, of course, I was like most kids. Right, I started off reading like the X-Men and Fantastic Four and all the DC and Marvel stuff. But then when I got a little bit older, I started getting into a lot of the Dark Horse and Vertigo comics. So like one of my favorite series, actually, probably my favorite series of all time, is Preacher. So like I'm excited that they have the TV show out, but I was like, it's on AMC, so I'm like, how can they do half of the stuff that are in those books?
Yeah. I think they've
Yeah,
done a
it's
pretty good
it's
job.
Yeah, so far it's not too bad. I'm excited. I think the next season starts June 20th or something like that.
Yeah.
so. Did you have a love for comic books and such, and then you moved into? Well, I guess maybe I'm putting a horse before the cart. Uh, what did you do before cosplay?
So my love of comic books also dealt with my love of art in general. So I was always a painter. I was always illustrating, doing drawings. Like I get comic books and try to replicate, the likes of Todd McFarlane and Jim Lee and whatnot. So I went to school for illustration, and I was an illustration major, and that's what I did, freelance until I joined the ranks of the cosplay elite as one of the top, I guess, male cosplayers out there.
Right. Well, okay. Let's start talking about that. How did that happen? Going from illustrator to cosplayer, because you definitely made a name for yourself pretty quickly.
Yeah, and a lot of that, I think it really has to deal with the fact that my illustration background lends to my prop making and costume building background. The whole reason I got into cosplay was by accident, almost. I was a full-time associate at Lowe's selling appliances, and a couple of my friends and we played Borderlands every single night. And like Borderlands 2 was our favorite game, and we played till like 2 in the morning. And they had talked about that the comic book convention for Kansas City was getting bigger, and it was going to be moving to Bartle Hall. And so we were all going to go. And I was like, I've never gone to a Comic Con or anything, so I was like, you know what? Well, we can. And they're like, well, all right, we're all going to go, but we're all going to dress as different Borderlands characters and go up there. And I was like, what?
Mhm.
Stephen.
No, I'm still here.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think
My
we're
computer- my
cutting
computer
in and
cut out a
out
little
with
bit.
stuff.
Technical difficulties.
And
So-
yeah, we had decided that we were going to go to the Comic-Con dressed as different Borderlands characters. And I had done some research, and I decided I was going to be a Psycho Bandit because I always want to be the bad guys. I think bad guys always look cooler. And
Agreed.
I had done some research online about some guys that had made Psycho masks, and I'd looked into it, but they were really expensive. They were like $300 to $400, and they weren't that great. I was like, man, I wonder if I could make my own. And so, of course, the thing that you do, and you're an artist, I spent $500 on materials because it's like to jump into resin casting and mold making and everything. It's a very very expensive dive into that. And so, yeah, I created my first Psycho mask. I created a full-scale Buzz Axe. I made the whole costume, and I went to Planet Comic-Con. And it was the year that... Go ahead.
I was going to say, did they come out correct the first time you tried to make them, since that was your first... Or was there many trial and errors to that costume?
There was a single trial and error before the Psycho mask that I have today. And I just wasn't good at the mold making part of it or the sculpting part. Like I had taken sculpting 1 because I was an illustration major, but I'd never gone beyond that because I was like, when am I going to need to know sculpting? I don't want to take any more of these classes. I want to get into painting and drawing. And so, there was a mask that I made before my original Psycho that I use now, but the mold did not survive. And so it was a costly, expensive mistake. But I learned from it, and that's the key.
Sure,
Yeah.
absolutely. Well, and I'm sure by now you've gotten most of that initial investment back, haven't you? Did we just
silicone? Say again?
Oh, we just keep cutting out. I think it has something to do with the connection. We've got weather here in Topeka. So,
okay. And so I say usually when it comes to costs, like silicone's your most expensive thing to do your molding, and it's around $200 for a gallon kit. But when you factor that part into it, a lot of the other stuff you can continue to use. So like I use Monster Clay, which you can melt down. So after you're done sculpting, melt it down, reuse it on your next project. So it's a reusable. The resin you buy, it's $85 for a gallon kit, but that's a lot of resin in there. So you can make a lot of masks out of 1 gallon kit.
Yeah. Is that how the silicone is too? Can you make a lot of things with it, or how long does that usually last you?
And
We lost him
Yeah.
again.
Man, the troubles with technology, it gets to be a good thing. But Steve, if you can still hear us, could you mention something about the silicone again? Because it looks like we lost you.
yeah, I was saying the silicone is going to be the most expensive part to it. It's around $200 a gallon kit. And it's pretty much a one shot. Once you make that one mask, you've got your mold. And if you take care of it, you can usually get about 30 to 60 castings out of it before it deteriorates enough that you've got to redo it all again.
Wow.
So, with that many castings, are you selling like the Psycho mask? Is that something people can go to a site and buy?
Do sell. I have on my Etsy page, so it's just Etsy.
Oh, looks like we dropped. Gosh, looks like we dropped some again. Could you repeat that about your Etsy page?
Still don't have him.
And we'll make we'll make
and I
sure to
can
put
hear
up a
you.
link.
Yeah, I can hear you guys fine. I don't know. I guess it's just cutting in and out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. It's just cutting in and out, and sometimes you'll just be smooth as butter, and then it'll cut in and out when you it's almost when you start a new conversation.
Perfect timing.
That sounds about right.
So you're saying people can go to your Etsy page and they can pick up some.
Yep. Now, hey, would you want me? Would you want me to? I've got a laptop upstairs.
Huh?
Would you want me to try to go broadcast from the shop instead?
We're good wherever. Yeah, I think this will be good. We'll make it work, and then we'd love to talk to you again sometime in your shop, though, because I know
we'll
that's
have you on again, and you can be in the shop and you can show us some stuff. We'll plan a special episode for it because I'd be interested in that.
Well, and Frankie, since you're interested in that, I'm just going to do a little pimping. On Mondays and Wednesdays, Steven's doing a Twitch stream on Mondays and Wednesdays, and that could be checked out. Where do people check that out on Mondays and Wednesdays?
Twitch.tv/SKSprops. And I usually start around 9 a.m. and go till about noon, and then sometimes I jump back on after noon till about 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're in there doing work all day long, and so we kind of get a viewpoint into a couple hours of your work day.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, it's working for yourself. I've never worked this hard in my life. It's constantly every day. That's why it's terrible. I don't play video games much anymore, which is the whole reason I got into this, because I'm like, I started a game and I'm like, man, you should be working on this,
That's sad.
Yeah, so which I've told myself I really do need to take more time out and start getting into gaming and whatnot again.
You need you need dedicated inspiration time.
I do. I mean, honestly, that's the whole key, right? To having your business and having your tax write-offs is spending it on video games and movies
That's
as
exactly
inspiration. Right.
Well, and from what I understand, they're starting work on Borderlands 3, and so it may be a good time to get back into gaming.
Yeah, that's definitely one that I'm really looking forward to. So I guarantee you when that comes out, I will drop whatever I'm doing and play that game.
Be missing for a couple weeks.
Yeah, SKS Props shop, will still be up, but your order is going to be delayed by 3 weeks.
Hey, talk to us a little bit about the Orc, and we'll talk about the Death Dealer right behind you for a little bit after that.
All right.
How long did it take you to make that Orc? Because it's world renowned.
Yeah, the Orc I had to build pretty quick. It was about 2.5 months, start to finish, because I had to have it done for C2E2 in the World Championships there.
Okay.
I have a question. What's C2E2?
C2E2 is one of the big conventions out of Chicago.
Okay.
And it's a long...
Of course.
Oh, just lost you there. You're saying that C2E2 is something?
He's not back yet. I can tell you when he's back, but he's not back yet. Not quite sure what's going on, but everyone looked pretty.
Yeah, we'll continue. C2E2 is one of the great big cosplay conventions that does a lot with video games there in Chicago. So it's a fantastic thing.
Steven! He left us.
He did leave us.
He did?
We're going to switch back to the splash screen real quick and give you a little Mikey Mason. Maybe not. Maybe we don't have to. There he is.
Funny here.
Oh, there he is.
Said you left us.
Yeah, I didn't mean to.
That's okay.
You're back.
That's all right. Good to have you back. We were just talking a little bit about C2E2. We kind of missed out on what you were describing.
Yeah,
with C2E2.
C2E2 is one of the big ones. They're part of ReedPop, so they're part of Emerald City Comic Con, New York Comic Con. And every year they have the World Championships where all the grand prize winners from all of the other cons and around the world go to Chicago to compete against each other.
So this is like the big cosplay brawl.
Yeah, at least for the U.S. Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, where do you go from there?
The only other place you can go is on television, right?
Right. So you went to television. Tell us a little bit about the TV show if you'd be up for it.
Yeah, I was on Cosplay Melee, episode 4 on the Sci-Fi Channel. And for those that haven't seen it, basically what it is it's like Face Off, but with cosplay instead of prosthetics and makeup. And so we were given 3 days to complete a costume from head to toe, which is ridiculous, and no one should ever do that.
Did you cry?
But you did.
But I did.
Yeah, tell us about the costume that you made.
Spoilers.
Well, spoilers, but I mean the show has been out since April, right? So
I was gonna say it's a little late for spoilers.
But I'm just warning people.
Yeah. And so our episode was called War Games, and we were tasked with making an original character, but that would fit into the world of a particular sci-fi game. So I chose Destiny because I'm very familiar with Destiny and the characters and the armor because I made a hunter a couple of years ago. So the best thing about my costume is if you look at my costume on the show, it is little bits of every single costume I've ever built because I know that works and I can build that extremely fast because I know it works.
Yeah, 3 days.
Yeah.
Now it's kind of like Iron Chef as well, where you're given certain parts. Did you get the parts that you wanted, or is that a point of
the challenge for ours? Yeah, the challenge for our episode was lighting, and after the first person is voted off, there were multiple boxes of lights up there, and they said that. You could go and you could choose your box of lights. And so I let everyone else go. Josh went first, then I let Becca go in front of me because I was like, I'll just deal with whatever's left. And unbeknownst to me, I got Christmas lights in my box instead of LEDs or anything. So that was a little bit of a challenge. I'm definitely going to say that.
Uh-huh.
So I have a question.
Because...
sorry, Bean. So you picked Destiny because you were used to playing that. So with the Orc, did you play a lot of WoW?
I did not play a lot of World of Warcraft, but I did play Warcraft. And so like this is actually a Warcraft 3 Orc. So it's before they got to the kind of the over-the-top cartoony look to them. It's still more a savage look. Similar to what they had in the movies. I liked that fact of it. At least they had kind of kept the orcs more savage in the movie.
Yeah. Very cool.
So, let's change gears to talk back about that costume a little bit. How much does it weigh and how long does it take to get into it?
The entire costume is made out of foam. I wanted to prove to people that you could build something that's big and awesome fairly cheap, and that it would be fairly light. So the whole thing weighs 25 pounds.
Wow.
And only cost me a little over $300-something in materials. The costume, now I have learned a lot since my very first costume I ever made. So the Orc, I can get in it in about 5 minutes and out of it in about 4 minutes. So, and it's because
it looks so heavy.
Yeah, it looks heavy, but it's extremely hot. That's the big key. Is that once you're done, like you're done. You want out right there.
I know it's a thing for a lot of costumers who do foam work. How much do you think you sweat each time you get in that thing? Because foam tends to absorb water.
Yeah, I've clocked it. I lose about 6 to 8 pounds every time I wear that thing, which is why I don't wear it anymore.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Can I wear it for like a week straight? Because I could lose.
I was
some
gonna
weight.
say, can you get on this orc diet, please?
It's not a diet you want. Like literally the last 2 times I've worn it, I've been extremely ill afterwards just because I've lost so much.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have to prep to get into it, like the day before? Is there anything that you do to get your body ready to handle all that?
Not really. It's just drinking a ton of water.
Did you build a
Um,
Camelback into it?
I had one. It it's not really big enough, and normally I've got handlers that will feed me as though I'm a baby bird, lots of water
Aw.
throughout the day. I did purchase a cooling vest for it, and contractors like out in California said that they wore these things underneath their suits for like 4 to 5 hours before they completely melted. I had it underneath the orc for 20 minutes before it completely melted. So it's like
Wow.
that. I mean, for that 20 minutes, it felt fantastic, but after that, I mean, it did no good.
Mm-hmm.
Man. So is that your hottest
Yeah.
costume to date?
Yeah, that's probably the hottest one that I've worn consecutively. The other one that I had that's extremely hot is my Dead Space, Isaac Clarke. That was
Yeah.
my first really big build, and it took about 3 months and 300 hours. It takes about 20 minutes to get into because I
Wow.
just wasn't smart back then. But there's there's so many layers to it that it's also extremely hot. And I wore that one to Planet Comic Con and to Phoenix Comic Con, which that was a mistake.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think I could
So-
handle it. I'd be
So
dead.
in order to compete at all these shows, that's quite a bit of shipping and handling costs for these costumes. How do you make that something that can be affordable?
Yeah, besides the orc, all of my other costumes are all designed to fit into hard shell suitcases. So, like all the armor, will fold up into itself, so it can fit in there. Like with my Dragon Age, he's got this huge bastard sword that unscrews, so it can fit in there properly. So yeah, a lot of them just travel along with me. I don't ship them separate.
Okay. Yeah. Well,
So would you
I can also
rather-
see just
Go
go for
ahead,
it.
Bean. I was gonna say, would you rather make weapons, or do you like doing the actual armor and costume itself?
Yeah, that's more my thing. Some of my friends are extremely good at doing like guns and different types of weapons. I personally enjoy building like the helmets and armor. That's more of my characteristics. If, like with Death Dealer, his helmet is, means a lot to me. But because I've never seen anyone else do it, number one. But because it's so. Usually when you're doing the helmets and everything, they're so iconic to what the character is. And that's your focal point.
Mhm. So tell us a little bit about the Death Dealer there. It's Franzetta's Death Dealer, right?
Do you
Yeah,
have the helmet right there?
I do.
Can we see
Hold
the
on one
helmet?
sec.
Sorry to make
Gosh,
you get up.
Frankie, making him do all the work.
Well, now I'm interested. He says the most iconic piece to see.
Yeah.
Oh wow, that's beautiful.
So yeah,
Okay.
let me.
So what
Pop
is that
ahead
made
out
out
here.
of?
So this one was hand sculpted, and then resin cast. I had to do a junk mold on it so I could make it perfect. And this one, because Death Dealer and all the paintings, his eyes light up. And so I even installed the LED eyes and stuff in there.
No Christmas lights?
No Christmas lights. I get to use actual LEDs.
So how heavy is that helmet, you think?
This one's a couple pounds.
Yeah.
Not too bad. The horns, I rotocasted them, so they have a decent shell, but they're hollow. And then I fill them with expanding foam, so they still have some rigidity to them.
They look amazing.
Yeah, thank you.
I guess
Yeah,
that's why you
that's
are on
a-
TV, right?
So So does
But
the
along with him, so like that's also his axe. So his
Wow.
weapon is iconic, and that's one of the few I did really want to make on my own.
I need one of those just to carry around Topeka.
Yeah.
lost him
and,
just for a second?
and so with Death Dealer, that's is yours one of the bare chested ones, and then just the badass battle skirt?
Me personally, when I wear it, no.
Uh-huh.
So my skirt is made out of PVC piping.
Uh-huh.
I took those, cut them up on a bandsaw, linked them all together, and then I made a tunic for him. My buddy Ethan of Thousand Faces Cosplay is the one who dressed up as him for Planet Comic Con.
Uh-huh.
And Ethan is, as well as being a fantastic actor, also a bodybuilder, and so he filled the costume out a little bit better than I did.
Excellent. Very good. Well, yeah. Hey, what's it like getting your friends to wear your costumes? Is it fairly easy now anymore, or is it something that you have to worry about often at all?
Well, like with Ethan, he was extremely honored to wear my costume, and I was extremely honored to have him wear my costume, because they're so good about bringing characters to life. But yeah, that it helped a lot too, because I don't have to be in it. I can have my booth and have all my props and talk about it, and not have to take the helmet off to talk to everybody that came by to look at her to get pictures. So it was mutually beneficial.
Very nice. Very good.
So
Well, hey, let's.
I was going to ask him.
Go ahead, Frank.
The artist background that you went to school for, does that help a lot with the painting and weathering of all your props, or did you not?
Definitely.
It did.
Definitely. Yeah, I've been painting for over 30 years, and that's what most people that know my work usually recognize it to my paint jobs that I do. I've always said that I'm a good builder, but I'm a really good painter. And I've always preached that you could save an okay prop with a fantastic paint job, but you could kill a really good prop with a really crummy paint job.
That's true.
Yeah.
So that makes me wonder, because good artists borrow, great artists steal. Have you ever had your art stolen?
I have. Yeah, I was lucky enough to have, I guess, to be considered one of those artists that to have their stuff stolen. Yeah, there was a company that apparently thought that I was small enough where they could get away with it, that they took one of my Psycho masks and put it at their booth and said that they were going to be making them this summer and they're going to be mass producing them. And one of my fans was out and about at one of the conventions, saw it, called me up, and they're like, "Did you give this company permission?" And I was like, "Nope." And like, "Hold on a sec." So they went and videotaped the one of the associates talking about it. And I gave them 24 hours to basically apologize and go from there. And they didn't apologize or do anything. So I just floated it out on the internet, and it kind of erupted.
Yeah.
That's one thing where, like, I've always tried to be a really stand-up guy within the community. I have free build tutorials on every single one of my costumes on the Replica Prop Forum. And so, it's one thing is, like, a lot of the community came behind me to back me up, because they're like, "Hey, like, Steve's not a bad guy. Like, don't do this to him," type of a thing.
That's a great thing about I feel like the cosplay community and con community, there's a lot of support, so.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It is a community. I mean, that's the thing, is that we all have to keep it growing and keep it honest.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's some bad, but there's a lot of good. I feel like comes to the rescue, saves the day.
Yep.
All right. So, what's your favorite material to work with?
Man, I'm all over the place. It depends on what I'm making. Like if I'm doing a mask or a helmet, I prefer to hand sculpt it out of clay. But if I'm making like armor, I'll make that out of foam just because of how fast I can build something.
Yeah.
Now, your episode of Cosplay Melee was the show there on Sci-Fi. You won your episode, and what
Spoilers.
what else did that entail? Oh, are we?
You're good.
You're good. He's here.
We're good. Okay. Steve, I was just asking about. I was going to change gears for Cosplay Melee a little bit. You won your episode. What all did you get out of that? What happened after that? So on and so forth. Any good lessons we need to learn?
I mean, the biggest thing is, I did win my episode. We won. The winner of each episode, it doesn't move on. It's just a single episode on its own. And the winner receives $10,000. And then, some accolades from the community and everything else. I was contacted by a lot of conventions, after that to go out and be guests. But I'm kind of backing away from the convention scene a little bit to spend more time at home and focus on my current projects. It seems like a better use of my time than traveling all over the country.
Are those current projects a secret?
No, current projects are not a secret. I'm currently twitching on them. So I've announced not long ago that I created a character a year ago. I actually just got my Facebook memories picture. So 1 year ago, I created Wasteland Alice, which is the whole world is, Alice in Wonderland, but with a Wasteland Mad Maxy type of a feel. And fans have been going, they've really enjoyed the characters, the stories that I've put out so far. And so I'm going to be teaming up with some people, and we're going to be doing a graphic novel based off her and her world.
Nice.
And are you going to build each of these costumes?
I personally will not build all of them, but I will have cosplay reference sheets, just like a lot of the video game companies do nowadays. So if anyone else wants to build their own version, they sure can.
Awesome. I have a question about, were you a business before you went on your TV show and stuff, or did that come after, and how was that whole process?
No, I've done prop making full time now for about 2.5 years.
Okay.
Like I said, before that, I was a freelance illustrator, but primarily I worked in the retail because I've got a wife and 2 kids, and we have to pay the bills, and family comes before my dreams of being an artist.
Yeah.
It just so happens, that now my dreams have shifted, and my wife's able to work from home, and both my kids are in school, so I get to do this full time. And that's been really, really cool.
Awesome.
Nice.
The dream.
Yeah.
It is.
It is living a dream, but it's also, like I said, it's the hardest I've ever worked in my life. So for anyone that thinks that being a full-time prop maker, that's just the easy life. I just get to sit around and make props all day to be great. It's not that.
Well, do you find yourself having to make the same prop over and over and over again for various orders, or do you just make a bunch and have a market for them?
No, most of the time they're made to order, just because I don't have the free time just to make up a whole bunch of stuff that I may not sell. So that's where, like, making the Orc and Death Dealer and all my other costumes, that's my vacation. That's getting away from doing the mundane orders that I have to repeat over and over again. My break is spending 200 to 300 hours on a costume that, is complete head to toe.
That's dedication.
What What item have you made the most? What prop have you made the most?
Legally speaking, I'm not going to answer that question, just in case certain companies might be listening in.
Sure.
All right.
Yeah, I recently received cease and desist from Activision for my Destiny props, which sucks because Bungie Bungie loves me. Like, Bungie promoted my work. I went to the Bungie head office, showed them my hunter costume, everything. But they're owned by Activision/Blizzard, and their lawyers don't like such things.
That's how you know you're making it big, though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. When I started off, I could build anything and nobody cared. And I swear, as soon as I start to build something now, like that franchise is all over it. That actually happened with my Turbo Kid costume, which if you guys haven't seen Turbo Kid, it's on Netflix, and it's a fantastic movie. So with Turbo Kid, let me grab his mask real fast.
Are you just surrounded by helmets? And
I am. I have masks. I have costumes. I am the poor man's Tony Stark. I have costumes all over my basement. So this is Skeletron. Wow. And I knew just from seeing the previews of the movie that I was absolutely going to love it because it's like an 80s over-the-top gory horror film. It's fantastic. And the movie did not come out in the U.S. until much later. It debuted at Sundance Film Festival. And so I had taken some really tiny screenshots of this particular character because I'm like, man, that guy's awesome. I don't care who he is in the movie. I want to make him. And so I hand sculpted the whole mask and made all the rest of the costume. And it debuted in the U.S. on a Friday. And 3 days later, I had it out at Dragon Con. And the producers of the movie contacted me, and they were furious because they wanted to know who in their prop department had sold me the props from the movie. Because they thought that someone had gone in and taken the props and sold them illegally. And I had to prove to them, I was like, no, I built all this stuff. And so luckily I do build threads of all my costumes, so I was able to send them pictures of me hand sculpting like this entire mask. And from that, though, like we got to talking quite a bit, and I ended up making masks for them to sell to help raise more money for the movie. As far as like, they just got greenlit for Turbo Kid 2, and I've been talking to the producers and directors still on that. It's like once you guys start production, like I don't want to work for you. I just want to make something that goes into the movie, you know. So hopefully that can happen.
Cool.
That's awesome. That's very awesome. Do you have some other cool stories like that people should know about?
I mean, that's the awesome thing is that I've been extremely lucky with cosplay, and every single one of my costumes has been iconic in a way where it's got to do something really, really neat. Probably one of the biggest accolades was my Dragon Age costume. Finished it for Dragon Con, and then I was contacted by Lindsey Sterling's production crew, and they were like, hey, we want to use your armor. Lindsey Sterling wants to do a Dragon Age music video, and we want to use your armor. And I was like, no. I was like, I've seen what happens in her videos. They go running around and they sword fight and everything else. I'm like, it's not designed for that. And they're like, no, we'll take super good care of it. And so it got flown to Norway and was used in Lindsey Sterling's music video.
Did it come
now
out
I'm gonna
in
have to
one
look
piece?
it up.
It had some dings and dents and whatnot, but I just attribute that to the journey it's been on, and it now resides on a mannequin that doesn't go anywhere. Because I was lucky enough, she came to Kansas City when I still lived there, and one of her people in her office contacted me like, hey, would you like to go see Lindsey Sterling? She's coming through Kansas City. I'm like, yes. And so I got meet and greet passes, and so I got to meet her, and I brought the helmet and had her sign it and everything. So it was really neat for that.
Awesome.
Very cool. Well, yeah, man. Let's see. You're focusing on the Wasteland Dallas stuff. You've got stuff going on in an Etsy shop. You've got the Twitch streams. Are there other places that people should be contacting you to follow you?
I mean, yeah, anyone out there can always follow me on Facebook at Stephen K. Smith Props, and then I'm also on Twitter and Instagram at SKS Props. And it's funny, I've got, a pretty decent amount of followers, and most of them don't even build, they don't even do cosplay, they just like to follow along my build processes and whatnot. So that's the thing, is that, my way of giving back to the community is showing how I build all this stuff. So that's why I say you can find every single one of my costumes on my Facebook page or on the Replica Prop Forum, start to finish. I mean, there's a 17-page build thread just on Dead Space.
Oh,
There's
wow.
I think it's like 14 or 15 pages on the Orc, but it's got like over 100-some thousand views on it. I mean, it's crazy.
That's crazy awesome.
Have you ever made one of your costumes produce smoke or fog?
I have not, but I've had several friends that have done that. So I would check out a guy named Core Geek. Eric is fantastic at doing that kind of stuff. So he's done some stuff using some vape canisters and whatnot. And my other friend, Ryan Wells, has also, he doesn't cosplay as much nowadays. He's kind of got out of it, but I know that he's still got some tutorials on his page as well.
Someone asked, will you be at Dragon Con this year?
Yeah.
I will be at Dragon Con this year. Yeah, but I did not make it last year because I bought a house the weekend of Dragon Con. But I will not be buying a new house. I know. I was so mad at my real estate agent because it was supposed to be another weekend.
What events do you have coming up that you're going to go to?
Right now, the only ones I have scheduled are possibly Indie PopCon and Dragon Con. I've kind of cut all the rest of them out just to focus on this whole Wasteland Alice conceptual stuff. Also, my kids are out of school, and I'm going to start getting them into costume building too. So we're going to start streaming with my daughters and showing them how to build stuff out in the shop.
Do your daughters have a costume that they want to build yet?
We're going to go original design stuff, but my oldest daughter and I, we've been talking, and yeah, I think we've got a good concept to go on.
Awesome. I'm excited for that. My 6-year-old is a different Star Wars character every day, so he really wants to be C-3PO. Not sure how I'm going to build that one.
Yeah. And kid cosplays are awesome. There was a time a couple of years ago that my youngest daughter, I made her an Astrid costume from How to Train Your Dragon.
Yeah.
And that photo went viral. She was so much more popular than I was at that time. I mean, it just was insane. But I mean, she was, 3 foot nothing with this gigantic battle axe. So how could you not love it?
That's awesome.
What is the biggest prop you've built so far?
He has to look around.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's I've got lots of big things, but I mean, I guess in general, it just have to be the Orc.
Just orc.
Like I was saying it earlier, just one boot is 2 foot tall, 2 foot deep, and 17 inches wide. I mean, that's gigantic on its own, but still only weighs in at 4.9 pounds.
Wow. So what's the most expensive costume you've made?
At this point, probably Death Dealer, just because of doing junk cast. Junk cast can get expensive because you got to mold the whole thing. It's using a lot of your silicone, then getting rid of it, and then molding all of it again. Other than that, though, I mean, most of my costumes were fairly inexpensive just by using foam.
Yeah.
What kind of foam do you use? We lost him. Oh, no, there he is.
I use No, I'm still here. EA foam. So a lot of people know as the foam floor mats. I've started working with TNT Cosplay Supply, and so they are actually going to be sponsoring my next couple of builds. And their foam is the same type of material, but there is no texture on the opposite side, so it's smooth on both sides, which is really nice. And they've got lots of different densities, and they just started putting out foam rods, that can stand up on their own, so you can make all kinds of really cool spikes and horns and stuff like that.
Nice.
So how do you? This is probably more for your Twitch stream, but how would you make like moving joints in your EVA foam?
Moving joints?
Yeah,
What do you mean?
Like for your arm, like if you wanted something to cover your whole arm, and you needed like a joint at your elbow, how would you make that work? Does that make sense?
Honestly, yeah, for something like that though, I probably wouldn't do specifically EVA for it. That would be like when I did Dead Space. Dead Space has a lot of those moving type parts on there, and I use styrene for all of that. So it's a heat formed plastic you can get from like sign shops. That would be the same thing I would probably do though if you're wanting to do EVA foam. Still use styrene as a base, and then put your foam over that, or use a thermoplastic like Warbla or Terraflex.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a great way to go with that articulation, because it can be a little tricky for a number of folks.
I have another question. Do you have a vacuum former?
Not yet. I've got one on order that I hope to get, but I don't see me using that a whole bunch. Again, for replicating that, it's a lot of thin plastic shell stuff, so it's not really my thing. But I had a little extra money laying around, and it was before the holidays, so you gotta have that shop expense when you're a business, right?
Yes.
Yes.
That's absolutely right.
I don't know.
Awesome.
I can't think of anything else.
All right.
I ordered a laser cutter too.
Yeah.
Oh,
Hey,
laser.
there you
So
go.
hopefully that will
Can it cut
eventually
your EVA
come.
foam?
It can. They cut EVA foam very well. You just have to make sure they're well ventilated, because the vapors that come off of that are extremely toxic. That also goes to anybody that would be doing EVA foam. Make sure that you are always wearing a respirator and doing it in a ventilated area, because that stuff is no bueno for your lungs.
So,
How does someone get started?
How do you start? It depends on what you're doing. If you're doing armor foam for the very first time, I spent 2 days out in my shop just doing nothing but tearing the foam up with different Dremel bits, different screw bits, hitting it with different heat guns, just to see what the foam would do. So I'd say number one is become familiar with the material, and then from there just start putting it together and see kind of how it acts, how it reacts when you heat it up versus like when it's not heat up, different types of adhesives to use. I mean,
Whoa.
again, on any of my build threads, you can see how I've done it, but also you could go to the Replica Prop Forum and check and see how a bunch of people have built different things.
hey, Stephen, thank you for your time, man. You've given us a lot of great information. I'm just going to pimp out once again. Everyone go check out twitch.com/SKSprops.
Twitch.tv.
Twitch.tv/SKSprops. Thank you very kindly. You've got an Etsy channel. What's the address for your Etsy shop?
So it's etsy.com/shop/SKSprops.
Okay, excellent. And then find SKS Props on Facebook, Twitter, and all the social media. Thank you so much for coming and talking to us and giving us a little bit of feedback. Oh, okay.
Do you take commissions?
I currently do not take commissions.
Okay.
Honestly, I'll let you know, I never did, and I hopefully never will. I'm one of those rare prop makers that I do well enough on my own not to do it, but I've always felt that once I start taking commissions, it's going to feel a lot more like a job. So at this,
We lost him.
so
There
I
you go.
build what I like to build, and if people want it, that's awesome. If not, they can find somebody else to build it. There's lots of great prop makers out there.
There certainly are. And we look forward to talking to a lot more And yeah, so thank you once again for joining us tonight and letting us learn a little bit more about your world here on Con Artist. Folks,
All right,
we'll
thank
see you
you
next
for
week.
having me.
Absolutely. Next week, we're going to have a little bit of a change. We're going to be up at Game Nut in Lawrence, Kansas, talking to BJ Hahn about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and all sorts of comic book stuff up there. And expect to see us up there a couple of times a month talking to more comic book folks and some gaming folks up there. So thank you, everyone, for watching, tuning in, and sharing and commenting. We'll see you all next week on Con Artists.